which is which are arrays and hashes for the most part. I think chapter 4 is about strings, everything relating to strings. So personally, I thought the chapters were a bit interesting, as much as the first two chapters were interesting as well. But these ones are very interesting because of the introduction of the various methods that Ruby provides us with to perform certain operations on either an array or a hash or the strings. That is for chapter 4. So first and foremost, I think for chapter 3, you can summarize it into three sections for the most part. You talk about how to create a collection. For example, how can I create an array the manual way, and then how can I create an array in a way that is less tedious? And then same goes for a hash. And then after that, you look at iterating through the elements of an array and the elements of a hash. And then after that, of course, just like the previous chapters, the author brings in this section of in the wild, and then a couple things to look out for. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that made sense, or if that's clear to you guys.
Yeah.
Was that clear?
Yeah, it was clear.
Hmm. So I think everyone has a copy. I'll be referencing some of the examples in the book. I hope everyone has a copy open. So we start out here, and when it comes to creating arrays, the author shows us that we can either go into our, is it an editor or IRB, and type out the components of the array. That's like we define the array, open the square brackets, and write everything that should be included in the array. Or we could use a percentage and a W, and then we open brackets, and then we just write everything that should be in the array, and Ruby creates that for us. And then we proceed to a hash, whereby he shows us a way of eliminating the hash rocket, and then we just use the colon instead of the hash rocket when defining a new hash. And I think this is one of it's a kind of syntax that you see a lot in Rails for those that use Rails a lot. It's very evident in Rails. And then after that, we proceed to the iterating through. No, 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 sorry. We don't proceed to that. It brings in this thing whereby you can get a method, and you let it accept multiple arguments using the asterisk. Yeah, and have the arguments that have been accepted by the method, you have the method iterate through those arguments instead of having someone manually feed an array into the method, and then have it iterate through. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, for me, like putting the arg with an asterisk, I think it's a little bit confusing because I'd prefer to know which input I
Mm.
should do into a method, because otherwise it's gonna have like n scenarios that you don't know which you want to put. So if I write this method, I know, but probably someone using my code, I think it's gonna be confusing. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, you're coming from C sharp, right? Pedro, you're coming from C
What?
sharp?
No, I come from Ruby.
Oh, oh, I thought you had previously worked in a typed language?
Uh, Actually, I don't come from a type of language, but I have like experience using Sorbet in Ruby on Rails. That it's basically to type Ruby, have their ups and downs. But the good thing is that you know exactly what you're inputting the method. But the bad thing is that you have to write more code, and sometimes it gets a little complex. But for me, it's good to at least have a method that you have like the input method for the variables are like descriptive, so basically you know what you where you should put into. I don't know if it's just me, but I think it's confusing if you like put like arts somehow, at least for me.
Yeah. Is it okay if I chime in? I think this question could be, I think Nelson could help out. So regarding this thing of letting a method accept multiple arguments, the confusing thing on my end was that, is this method calling another Ruby method that turns the arguments fed into it to turn it into an array, and then that array is iterated over? Or I don't understand how it gets these arguments, and for some reason it can iterate over them, yet they are not an array. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just syntactic sugar for an array. Whereas,
Mm.
if you have a method that takes a whole lot of things as input, and you don't know the number of things that it can take, you can define a method that takes in an array. And so it's, in the code, if you look at the definition of that method, somebody who didn't write that method can go in and read, okay, it takes an array, and I know. The splat operator, that star, is basically doing that under the hood. You know, when Ruby is parsing the code, it looks at that splat args thing, and it just turns it into an array, because
Uh,
under the hood,
mm.
Ruby is just C code. It's just running in like all these things at the end of the day need to be turned into uh, something that C can understand. And so in C, yeah, it's going to be this thing that has a certain types. Um, I think you know it's it's complicated the way that it parses these things out, but at the end of the day, like, it, it's it's not viewing it as splat args. It has already turned it into something in C that is an array.
So it does the conversion under the hood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, and
Okay.
that thing in C, like in a lot of other programming languages, the this thing that we're calling an array would be called a list, because the assumption in some other, like C, is that the thing all the things in the list are of the same type. So they're all either strings or numbers, but you can't mix and match. In Ruby, you can mix and match. You can have things of different sizes. But that's also what makes it, a little slower than other languages.
Oh, okay. So Pedro, you had a question about that. I don't know if it has been answered or not.
I'm sorry, I didn't get it.
Did
No,
you have a
like
question?
previously you had a question about the asterisk. I don't know if it has been answered by Nelson or not.
No, no, no. It has been answered for that. It's just another Ruby provides it, but I don't see like there's I don't see too often this kind of this splat names like you put like R's with the asterisks and so on. But yeah, I understand what it happens.
Mm, okay. So I think we do the same thing for a hash. So we have a method called load font, and we are getting a font, a certain font according to the name being the key of the hash. No, the name and then the size. So you have a name, and then the name is Times Roman, and then the size is 12, and then
What page are you on? Is this 33 or
Yeah, 33. Okay.
yeah, yeah. So when you're trying to load the hash into this method, at first he shows you that you can use it with the curly braces. You write it the same way a hash is usually written, and then after that you get rid of the curly braces, and then after that you get rid of the parentheses altogether. And I think this is like a reference to the previous two chapters. There's a chapter that was referring to the parentheses, especially in this case of dealing with methods that you can do away with the parentheses, and then you just write the code without the parentheses. So that is what the final version of the method and its arguments. I think that's the logic behind it. And then after that, we proceed to running through your collection. And he referenced this in the previous two chapters, whereby he says it's better to use each instead of for when looping through an array. And I think you can see that he uses this syntax when creating the words array. He uses this syntax of a percentage and then a W and then the curly braces with the words inside the curly braces to create the array, instead of hard coding the array with the square brackets and then you open a string with the double quotes, and yeah, like that. And going on from there, he shows you how to iterate with the each, and then fast forward, he tries to highlight what happens and what output you're going to get if you have a single argument in this block. And then when he does movie.each and then entry is the argument whereby we are putting the entry after running through the block, it shows us the output that it's going to be an array of values, no, arrays instead of a single value. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then proceed. Now he's introducing in the methods that are provided to us by Ruby, which he refers to as the array API. So these methods, I think, are part of the array class, and they help you do certain operations regarding arrays or certain operations that could involve arrays. And he gives an example of finding the index, in this case of a given word in an array of words. And he's referencing the find index method, which is also part of the array API. And then he highlights a contrast between the map method, the inject method, and the each, as well as the find index, which we've seen before. I don't know if we are all at the same level. And in case there's anything confusing, we could talk about that, and then we'll proceed after.
So I'll just
Sure.
say that the list here is not exhaustive because uh, this is an older book, and so there are new syntaxes available. So if you're iterating over something like the movie.each, I think well, for a while you could do &1 to reference the first argument, I think, and then now there's a new thing called it, where it's like, yeah, you're using that first argument, and by default, it's called it.
Um, isn't there a method called it with value as well that you can specify both values, both the index and the value?
Yeah, maybe. Uh, I mean, I know
Uh,
there's each with index and
remember,
stuff, but I'm
yeah,
not
it's
aware of
each
that.
value. Yeah, and there's each pair and there each index as well. I think it's each pair that I try to remember.
Yeah, so I think like Nelson has said, this list of the methods he includes is not exhaustive. He just hints on a few of them. I think it could be like way more methods than he included in the book. So I think it's important to keep that in mind. So moving forward, I don't know if was the section regarding the map method and the inject method clear when you guys were going through the book.
Um, you mean like the map versus the each method?
Yeah, no. What I mean is that is the distinction between each of them clear? Like each does this, each method does this, and then map does this, and then inject does this. Like, is everything clear for each one of them? Because personally, I found that the inject method to be kind of confusing, especially given that it assigns that very first value to which it increments while running through the block. I found it kinda confusing.
Which page are you talking about?
I think it's let me see, 35.
35. Okay.
So Ruby has inject. It also has reduce, right? And they do the same thing. It's just it's the same name for the same functionality. And I think reduce might even call inject under the hood. So if you think about the name reduce, it might be more clear than the name inject, because what you're doing is at the like it's an array method, right? So you're starting out with a list of things, and then you're
Yeah, yeah.
going to perform some operation on all of these things, and you're going to reduce it to one output. And that might be more clear than
Uh,
thinking about it as inject.
yeah, yeah,
So you
yeah.
you have an array, you run you run reduce, it performs operations, you get one thing out of it.
Yeah, so the result is just a single value compared to the array you started with.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And actually, this is how Google got started. One the research paper that that was initially published by I think Sergey Brin had basically MapReduce. MapReduce was a big um, like was the majority of the paper where you basically say, okay, I have this web page. From this, I'm gonna map this web page to some values, and then I'm gonna reduce those values to a single thing, and I'm gonna call that page rank. And your page rank score determined how far up or down the list of Google results you would get. Um, yeah.
No, that's interesting.
That's the basics of like Hadoop, right?
Of a lot of
For
things. I
managing
mean,
big data.
array
Yeah,
methods, and this kind of method is called an array method. Uh, there's a bunch of them. I can't think of all of them right now, but it's like fundamental to being able to work with a whole lot of objects.
Okay. So that's really cleared that thing for me. And then we ran into a situation, I think it's in the last meeting regarding the bang operator.
yeah,
I don't know if you get remember.
I
Yeah, and
remember.
this next session helped me understand that quite better compared to the previous time. And the main takeaway is that every time you have a method that ends with a bang, that method. Now let's say we have an I'll use an example of a string. You have a string and you call a method that has a bang operator on that string. Mm. That method performs an action on that string and it changes the actual value that you started with. So basically,
Yeah,
you have a string and you're changing its actual value as compared to a method that doesn't have the bang operator, which is whose operation is going to give you a new object. The object is changed, but it's new, and then you retain the initial object, and then that's the new object. But then for the method that has a bang operator, it literally changes the initial object into the new object. So you don't have the initial object anymore. You only have the new changed object as compared to the one without the bang, which leaves you with two objects, the one you started with and the one you have at the end of the operation you've performed. I don't know what you guys think about my explanation.
no, I think it's good.
Yeah. So this next section helps me understand that like way better because it gives more examples. I think even in the strings chapter, they give more examples of those methods. You have a method without the bang, and then it's equivalent with the bang. So you have to keep out an eye for them, otherwise it gets tricky really fast. I think on the next page, it's page 37. You see this with the reverse method when it's called on an array. First without the bang operator, and then after with the bang operator. Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah, I think like this explanation is pretty clear. So
yeah.
yeah, when you have like an example, I think it's easier to understand.
Mm. So moving on, I didn't understand this section regarding the order of the hashes. It kind of makes sense, but then I don't see the practicality of it. It makes sense that when you now, like, let's say here he talks about I think iterating through the hash still with each, and then you're getting arrays here with the first and then mama, then second papa. And then I think he adds something to the existing hash and it goes to the end of the hash. That makes sense, but I don't understand the practicality of this and how it relates to the order.
Well, you have
You
additional
don't.
information here. Go ahead, Pedro.
No, no, go ahead, Nelson. You can say.
So in a lot of languages, hashes are not ordered. which means that, you know, when you put something in, it doesn't remember the order of the things that you put in. And so you cannot rely on those things being in order when you, let's say, look up all their values. Um, in Ruby, I guess it does ordering. And that was a surprise to me because I didn't realize that Ruby did order the hashes. Um, but because it orders the hashes, it means that if you do like whatever your hash is, dot values or dot keys, it means when you get those keys back, they're going to be in the order that you inserted them, which gives you additional information. So having the ordering gives you that information about which you put in first and which you put in last. If you don't do that, then you don't know and you lose some of that information.
Uh, Pedro, you had something to say?
No, I was about to say like if you don't see like the practical value of that, I don't know if you ever worked with JSON, and I think like the structures of hashes are a little bit similar
Yeah,
to
yeah.
JSON.
Mm.
So you can see like uh, so you have like a key pair value, and if you're gonna iterate, sometimes I think it's a lot better if you iterate through uh, for hash instead of array, so you can store more information. Hashes for the key value, I think it's easy, it's faster to access if you have the key instead of the array that you are only have the position of that. Instead of you can get the key, access the hash and the key and get the values. So these are like good examples of use cases for hashes.
Okay. So we have like 7 minutes left. I think we'll breeze through chapter 4, which is about the strings. We see a difference between double quotes and single quotes. Now that is something that was very, very new to me. Yeah, with the single quotes being as the author describes it, liberal. I think that means very few things could be done to regarding the single quotes, and then as opposed to the double quotes, which are more dynamic. And I think the first section of the chapter takes you through ways of creating strings with the percentage and then the Q, and then you open the curly braces again. Same goes with substituting the curly braces with now the less than and the greater than brackets. And I think he says you can use all these special characters as the brackets to follow the percentage and then the Q, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then still he goes through the same thing of creating a string and strings that exist on two lines, and then he tells you about if you have a very long multi-line string, you can consider using a here document to like I think make it more make the code you're writing more clear and more easy to read without the backslash and then the n to show you that you're moving on to the next line. And then just like in the chapters about arrays, still we have the string API, and he shows you a couple methods like chomp and then chop and what they do, gsub, sub. I think the examples are very clear when it comes to that. And it takes you to this section whereby you're considering a string to be either a collection of lines or a collection of characters and or a collection of bytes, and that is going to to determine the method you're going to use when you're iterating through this string. So for the consideration of a string to be a collection of characters, you use the each char method. And then if you're considering a string to be a collection of bytes, you use the each byte method to iterate. And then if you're considering a string to be a collection of lines, now like the string we've seen before as part of the here document, you can use the each line method when you're iterating through that string. And then I think that was kind of confusing, is this part of the inflection library for Rails. I don't know if anyone can highlight something about that.
So in Rails, when you have a person class, it's stored in the database as people, I think, because the database is the plural version of it. So how does Rails know that the database table needs to be called people? Like if for normal words, you would think, oh, you just add an S. But for some
Yeah.
words, you can't just add an S. It needs to be something completely different. And so here they're using inflection.irregular to map what the plural should be. So it's a bunch of rules, and I think it looks to me like it's a bunch of key value pairs. And so this method I would expect to add person and people to a hash of key value pairs, and then perform some operation on that.
Okay, so is the irregular a method? I'm saying it's inflect dot irregular, and then you pass in the arguments. Is irregular a method?
Yeah, in
I think it could be
inflect.
a method.
Yeah, inflect is the object, irregular is the method. And then
Mm,
don't get tripped up
mm.
because below that it says inflections. So that's not a method.
Oh,
That's gonna be some container, and that container
okay.
is going to probably be hold. Yeah, it says inflections dot plurals dot each, and it has rule and then replacement. Yeah, so it's basically a key and a value or something like that, or
Okay.
two
Okay.
two. It's holding two things. Um,
Uh, and the author said like these are the base for the pluralize. So if you get a string, assign it like to people, and the string you like to string dot pluralize. So it's gonna be sorry, if I assign a string like to person, and you get this string dot pluralize, it's gonna be people instead of like persons, something like that. So
Okay. Okay. Okay.
you know.
So I think we're left with we run out of time, but the next section, I think it gives you a practical view of the contrast we talked about, methods that have the bang operator at the end and the ones that don't have. And I think in this example, he uses the uppercase method, and he also shows you that he replaces the letter at the zero index from K to BD. And I think that explains his whole concept of strings being mutable, like they can easily change or they can easily be changed by calling methods that are made available by the string API on the string you want to perform the operation on. Yeah, I think that's it for the most part. 2 chapters.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks everyone for attending. Have a good day. I'll be
You
meeting with
too.
the guys for the